Well, hello YouTubers, and welcome back to this latest edition of Hot Shop Tips. Well, today we've got a kind of an interesting project. We're putting a roof on this container here. This is an open top, and it's going to get a filter element on top because we're going to be blowing chips into it. It's hot, it's the end of the day. I'm sweating like a pig, so sorry if I'm being a little distracted here. But anyway, we're going to put a roof on this thing and then a rain tarp. So the filter element is basically like a big tarp, just kind of a mesh screen, a real fine mesh screen. So when the chips get blown in, they stay inside the container and the air escapes out through it. And in order to keep the tarps from collapsing in, especially when it rains, we're putting this roof, like you can see back behind me here, to prevent that from happening. And also the apex here is going to be doubling as a fire suppression unit. Now we're going to probably add the nozzles at a later date, but nevertheless we went ahead and put the thing together, as you can see from the pipes in the way back, to where we can actually hook up a fire hose to it in case of a fire and actually suppress any fire that might come up. So anyway, the main focus today is how do we get an accurate length on a piece that has two different miters. Now we'll go into the shop here in a bit and kind of take a look at this little jig here. I made this out of scrap pieces off the ends. I'll show you a still here of the apex where I got these pieces from. So when we cut these, we cut them off straight, and the reason being for that is I knew we were going to have two different angles, and so you couldn't just set up the saw to cut one miter, then you'd have to set it up, turn everything, and cut another miter, and then go back and forth. That was just going to be too time intensive, too labor intense. So we opted just to go ahead and cut them off straight, and then add the miters onto them once they've been cut off. And so that's what I did, and I left a couple inches on both ends, so that way I'd have a little more material to work with, because I knew the distance between the apex and the wall is going to vary a little bit. It's just the nature of the beast right now. The steel in this thing is just doing all kinds of funky acrobatics. When I took the initial measurement, like right here, as you can see, the number on the rafter there does not match the number that you're reading on the rule. And the reason being for that is the steel is getting warm in the sun, and it's doing all kinds of funky twists and turns, and it's adventurous to say the least. But nevertheless, you can't rely on the steel being a constant. The only constant there is the change that occurs when the temperature changes. So you got to account for that a little bit. So what I did is I made took just a stick that was a little bit longer than the edge, or let it hang over the edge a little bit to where this would rest upon the edge. It's kind of a sloped edge, as you saw from the measurement. And then I let it go out over the apex. And the distance in between here, I wanted to keep it shorter, so that way any variation won't affect the measurement. Well, it'll affect the measurement, but I can get it in between the apex and the edge of the container, and that way you don't have to worry about shoving it in and then having to, what am I looking for? This being too long. So that way you're always adding to the length that you need. So when you're doing this, you want to put about, leave about an inch shorter than you actually need, and then that way you kind of have a pretty good idea of the length you're going to need. So here we have a almost full length piece. We ascertained the angle that we needed on account of, like I say, putting the one piece up against the frame and just kind of marking it out, and then taking that scrap piece and putting it up here, so that way when you lay this down you'll have the same angle. And all I did is just drill a couple of holes, some oversized here and then some smaller ones inside, put a little wood screw in there and just attach that to a stick that's about 4 inches longer than the span of the between the edge of the container and the apex. So let's go ahead and follow along here and see how this works. We'll put this onto a piece of raw stock and mark it out. We've already taken the measurement, as you can see by the little bit of GoPro footage there early on, but we'll show it again here just to show you. Okay, here we are taking the measurement from this stick. So now we're just taking the stick, laying it on our iron and marking that off. And then putting it on the saw. So then we cut it off. Now let's run it out to the container and see if it fits. Perfect. And as you can see from the GoPro footage, it fits quite nicely. Can't say that it's not too long, it's not too short, it's just about right. Now, when you're building with steel, you want to have a little bit of gap-osis. You don't want it to fit tight because you can't push steel once you've got it jammed in there. It won't give like wood does. It's just kind of one of those things to watch out for. You definitely want to keep a little bit of gap-osis, and that way you also get a little bit better penetration when you're welding this. So something to watch out for. Well, YouTubers, I hope you were able to glean a little something useful out of this little hot shop tip. Now this applies to woodworkers as well. It's not just steel that you can build with, this way too. You can actually do this in wood. Same process. If you have multiple angles on a piece of wood that you're putting in somewhere, this is a good way to do that. You just want to make sure that you have the right angles to start with, and then make your stick a little longer than you need, but the distance between your proof pieces, so to speak, a little shorter than you need, so that way you can always measure And if it's too long, you can always cut it off a little more. If it's too long, don't worry about it. You can always cut it short. But if it's too short, you're kind of hosed. So anyway, that's just kind of a little word to the wise there for you woodworkers out there too. So hope you were able to get something useful out of this. Now, if you have any thoughts, comments, critiques, or questions, suggestions, by all means, put them in the comment section below. Help feed the algorithm a little bit. And hope to see you again in the next video of Hot Shop Tips.